Unfortunately, I have to preface this video just like I did the previous one. There's a lot of background noise you might hear from the air conditioner that just so happens to sit right next to my bedroom window because our neighbors are wonderful. That is all. I can't do anything to change that. So you just have to live with it. I digress. Anyways, on to the video. Today, we're talking about the HP Z6 Workstation again, but not the computer itself. More specifically, the processor that is inside of it. If you haven't watched my previous video, and I don't blame you if you haven't, the card, if I remember, should be in the top right corner right now, so you can go and watch that should you feel interested. Inside this machine houses the Xeon Silver 4108 processor, just one of them. The Xeon Silver 4108 is not really an impressive sounding CPU on paper despite what the LGA 3647 socket might lead you to believe. It's an 8-core 16-thread CPU that really seems to target power efficiency above all else. It is a very low clock speed CPU at 1.8 GHz, and in practice, while it might look like it can boost up to 3 GHz on paper, it genuinely doesn't. I don't know if it's a BIOS limitation with this HP workstation, or if it's something to do with the chip trying to target efficiency above all else, but I've never seen this chip in an all-core workload go above 2.1 GHz, not even being thermal throttled, or power throttled, or anything. This chip apparently has a 85-watt TDP. I have yet to see it even go close to that kind of power consumption, so I don't know where the performance is with this chip. Truthfully, I barely ever see it hit 3 GHz at all, period, whatsoever. And even when launching programs, running games, it seems like it tops out about 2.1 GHz. That's just where it's at. So with that in mind, what is it like when we play games on it? Now, I was trying to find the appropriate GPU to use with this machine, so I kind of was like, this might bottleneck if I use an NVIDIA card, but then my Radeon card might not work or might not fit, so I was just like, I'm going to try both. Now, for graphics card testing, I have two cards that I used. I used a G4's GTX 1080 Ti and a Radeon RX 5700 XT in PCIe 3.0 mode, of course, because that's the limitation of this platform. And the results are kind of interesting. And I didn't test too many games because of the sake of time and because I figure the CPU isn't really the most interesting because it's not really a gaming processor, nor am I really testing any kind of a high-end graphics card here. I mean, I could technically have tossed in my 7900 XT, but what would have been the point? It would have been CPU bound anyway, so it's not really worth it to stick that thing in there. So hopefully my graphics cards of choice should get the most out of the CPU, or close enough to that its relevancy shouldn't be, well, tossed down the toilet. So let's go ahead and get into those results right now. Starting off the benchmarking run with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, I tested all games today at 1080p just so that way it would push as much load onto the CPU as possible. The NVIDIA card got 86 FPS on average with the minimum preset with a 1% low of 56, which was not bad. Not amazing, but not bad. The table kind of turned towards the Radeon 5700 XT, though, with 90 FPS on average and a 1% low of 66. And I think that might just be a little bit of NVIDIA driver overhead going on and, making its toll here. I really couldn't say for sure. Could just be a very weird CPU-related thing with both games at different times. I have no idea. FSR doesn't exactly help here, and not like you'd want to use it anyway. You're not really hurting for that much frame rate with the CPU. So, margin of error result, let's move on. Cyberpunk 2077 in this case really makes a case for NVIDIA driver overhead despite both cards not being very good. I mean, you look at the results here, you can see that, 3 FPS difference in the average between the Radeon and the G4's. Well, okay, neither results at 60, so it doesn't matter, really, in the grand scheme of things. You wouldn't want to play Cyberpunk on this thing because it's so badly CPU bound. But it really makes you wonder, is it really a case of NVIDIA driver overhead with this PC? I'm kind of thinking so, but, I don't want to jump to conclusions just quite yet, so let's move on. Hogwarts Legacy is up next, and I will say that this game did have an update after I took these test results, but in the grand scheme of things, it would not make a difference, so I'm just going to roll with what I already recorded. And holy smokes, was there an NVIDIA driver overhead moment going on. Look at the difference between the 1080 Ti and the 5700 XT using the low preset with forced medium textures. Like, what even is this? This isn't even really a comparison at this point for this game. It's just like, buy a Radeon, holy crap. Is that an NVIDIA driver overhead moment? Although I will say the percentiles were within running distance of each other, and I really wouldn't consider that to be a W completely for the Radeon. It does get more FPS, but you're still going to have the same stutters in the same spots because this game is CPU bound. This is turning into one of those NVIDIA driver overhead videos, even though I really wasn't trying to make it that way. But in SpiderMan Remastered at low, the difference between the 1080 Ti and 5700 XT was bigger than I thought. 73 on the NVIDIA compared to 86 on the AMD card. That's a genuine uplift in performance that I wasn't expecting. And yes, both cards, you have to try to get them to dip below 60, which, yes, you can do it. But I will say the Radeon definitely played the game a bit smoother, or at least it seemed on the surface like it was a bit smoother. So that is a genuine W for that card. And I will say, in a system like this, it seems like Radeon, for the most part, unless you care about ray tracing, is the way to go. The last game I wanted to test, because I didn't want to make this video too terribly long, I just used GTA 5, and in this case, the 1080 Ti configuration took a slight lead over the Radeon, and that was just because of the fact that maybe it was just run variants, maybe it was the settings that I used, I really couldn't tell you for sure, but it was basically the same. They're both good results. They both will dip below 60 in really grassy areas, because that's just what GTA does, but honestly, if you cap the frame rate, you're going to be just fine. You're going to have a great experience on both systems. Although I wouldn't really recommend it, but you can certainly do it should you need a system to play GTA. I ran Cinebench R23 and got a multi-core score of 5,516 and a single core of 648, so it's pretty balanced, but not impressive. It still gets beaten by a i7 7700K. And yes, I technically know that this is an old Geekbench benchmark because they updated it to 6.1 recently as of the recording of this video, but I digress. I'll show what I recorded anyway. It got a single core score on the CPU test with AVX2 of 952 and a multi-core of 4,224. So again, balanced for what it is, but by no means a speed demon by today's standards, or even when it was new. So, the Xeon Silver 4108, or at least with the limited testing that I did today, it's okay. I'm not going to say it's amazing. It will start every game that you probably want to play, but it's not going to make it playable because of that low clock speed. It's definitely something that I have to put in here. I wouldn't recommend it. Well, we'll see how the upgrade path goes. I do plan to buy a better processor for the system in time, and it'll certainly either have the same, more than likely it's going to have a higher core count. And, well, we'll see how it does. It should certainly perform way better than how this chip does, and it'll have a slight bit faster memory too, which is always a bonus. So stay tuned if you're wanting to watch that video. But at least for now, let me know what your thoughts are on the CPU down below. Should I have tested more games? Do you want me to test more games with the same GPUs? Well, let me know. But with that, I'm going to get out of here because I figure this video is already long enough. If you like what you saw, then you know where to click the thumbs up button down below. I shouldn't need to tell you that much again. Subscribe if you haven't, because I do upload rather infrequently. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. So thank you all for coming to watch, and I will see you all in the next one.